Hey everyone, this is Suze, and
I'm Sabs.
and together we're Suze and Sabs. So, just a bit of fun. So today we want to talk about a really interesting topic that's close to our hearts, which is mental health and self-care as global citizens and third culture kids. Before we go into that, we want to give a bit of background and introduction into ourselves. So I'll hand over to Sabrina.
Right, so before I go into my background, a bit about why I chose this topic for this month. And only in recent months have I really learned or realized the value of self-care and mental health, and just the power of mental health and how it actually helps in your everyday life, and especially living in such a hedonistic, frantic, busy world. So a bit about myself and a bit of background. I was born in Brazil, and I'm Swiss Filipina. But before I was even able to walk, we moved to Singapore and lived here for 19 years, season 1, which was when I went to the international school, and we had 59 nationalities in UWC, and I think that was pretty much the beginning of realizing that I was a global citizen or a third culture kid. And so until I moved to Switzerland when I was 19 for university, I had never lived in either of the countries, Switzerland or Philippines. And little did I know that it was a super huge culture shock. It was literally like night and day. I arrived, I tended to ask everyone I met on the streets and at university where they were from, and they just responded in a really stunned, like shocked way that they were Swiss and they thought I was Swiss, but we never really felt a connection, or I didn't feel I had anything in common with them. So I think that's when I had that revelation of really feeling like a global citizen and not fitting in. So I eventually attracted friends who were like-minded, and also who had similar backgrounds. And I think eventually, 7 years later, I decided to return to Singapore because of that lack of belonging and wanting to feel that familiarity and internationalism, I guess. So that was the reason why I returned, and I've been living here for 8 years, working in Singapore.
Cool.
Over to you.
I think my background is similar in some ways, and a little different in others. So I am half German, half English. I was born here in Singapore. I've been here for 19 years on and off. It's my third time here. Actually, my parents lived here as well as my grandparents. So I guess there's a strong bond to Singapore, especially as a base, I guess. I am European, but I've only ever lived in Germany for 4 years when I was younger. I've never lived in the UK. My parents live there now. When I was 13, my parents moved to India, and I moved into the boarding school here. And that was a pretty different experience in itself, in that you really were exposed to a lot of different cultures on top of what we, kind of grew up with here in Singapore as well. And when I was 18, I moved to Australia and spent 10 years in Australia before reaching a point where I felt like I wanted to move back to somewhere where I felt like I belonged and where I could relate to. A lot of my friends, including Sabrina, were moving back here. So for me, it was like a logical choice to move back to my, I guess, home country. And so, it's been really great in that sense. Being a global citizen, you really are exposed to so many different cultures and people, and you grow up really fast, and you meet people from all walks of life. Wherever you go, there's always someone in some country that you can go visit and stay with, and you're really adaptable, and almost like a chameleon in a way. But we also, I guess, the purpose of this session is we want to talk about some of the challenges and struggles that we've faced as being global citizens. And I think as we get older, we're kind of confronted with these increasingly, right? For me, it's where do I belong now? You know, I live in Singapore. I've been here for most of my life, but I don't have permanent residency here. I have a German passport. You know, my parents live in London. You know, I've got friends all around the world. And so for me, Singapore has almost become like a base. And, you know, culturally as well, I think as I get older, I'm trying to connect with my roots in a sense. So that's been a struggle for me, and not having family around makes it hard as well. So, you know, that's, yeah, I guess in summary, those are a couple of challenges that I wanted to raise, and in a short while I'll talk about how I've addressed them lately. But yeah, over to you.
So yeah, let's address the challenges and the setbacks of being a TCK global citizen. For me as well, it's been instability and yeah, a bit of an identity crisis that's only like cropped up probably in the last few years.
Yeah.
And yeah, not being able to have really a home base. Like we have a base, a current base, it's home for now, but it's not really home because family is everywhere. And one of the things that is a struggle and might also be for other TCKs is when Christmas comes around, where are we going to celebrate Christmas? You know, because we don't have the natural, you know, feeling of going home for Christmas because everyone's in a different country.
And it's not like our home is here.
Well, exactly. Right. So it always seems, it's always a challenge, and it's always a painful discussion and sometimes an extended discussion of what to do when we were going to celebrate or spend Christmas with the family, and who has enough time to spare and to travel. Another thing that I think we wanted to talk about is languages. The fact that we grew up here and we were faced and surrounded by so many nationalities, we tend to adopt and adapt, like different accents probably, or even just slang vocabulary. And I think we do that as well, like you were saying, to mirror the other person, but also to empathize and just to connect, really, because being multicultural and me as a Eurasian, like I will, you know, we have learned several languages. We grew up bilingually, but at the same time, within Singapore, within Southeast Asia, or when we travel within Asia, we tend to change it according to the people that we're surrounded by. Yeah, in a way.
And I think being like fluid is a really great characteristic, but it makes it challenging as an individual, you know, to relate or, you know, be, you know, assimilate with one particular culture. And it's not like we stay in one place we have stayed in one place for our whole lives, and we build friends and family around that one particular area. We've kind of lived in so many different countries.
Totally.
And
and another thing as well is having had the comforts of being or growing up as an expat in Singapore in the 80s. I think we had helpers, and we you know, we were basically stuck in this bubble, you know, of growing up with so many nationalities, but at the same time, we had all the comforts that it made it hard to take care of ourselves at a very early stage. And we only really learned that, or I only really learned that after having gone to university and, you know, really facing the big bad world, the big wide world. And I think that that's really been a refreshing, but also a very challenging experience. Almost a challenge to us to really overcome and learn how to cook, for example, which we've now embraced fully and has become one of our new passions to cook healthy and to live healthy and practice self-care through that as well, right? Learning to live on your own and to manage your own life. Yeah. So
should we talk about what does this all mean and what are the call to actions? So so if you're wondering, okay, this is, there's some points that you can relate to, and I kind of feel like that too, or how can this help me? So I think from my perspective, as we've kind of become a little wiser, hopefully over the years, what's helped me is to really live a balanced life. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, but in small ways, take time to put yourself first. Do things from a health perspective, like do yoga, meditation. These things really help. Or find a hobby that you really like. Like for me, it's boot camp. I love going for runs. I love doing yoga. I love mixing it up. It's a great way to meet people as well and stay grounded. Feel like you're kind of channeling your energy in different ways. I love cooking now as well, as Sabrina was saying. That's kind of a newfound passion. But also find people that you relate to that have either similar backgrounds or in contrast, that also are part of the culture that you, in the country that you live in. And I think that can really help you feel grounded, even if it is only a base here. And building strong friendships is really important. And it is hard when you live in a very transient place because people do come and go. But that's part of the, I guess, adaptability that is a really important characteristic of being a third culture kid. So those are some takeaways from me. And
I would say they're similar to for me as well. I definitely learned to make friends, my family, here in Singapore, and keeping friends close and practicing the 4 pillars of self-care or self-discovery. The first being just listening to yourself and your inner voice, cultivating your body and your mind. Eating well is the second pillar, which we already mentioned, and I recently only learned. And the third pillar is being physically active. So really getting that serotonin fix and making sure that, healthy body, healthy mind. And the miracle of mindfulness, which is meditation, and really finding that stillness and trying to find that centered self and also keep grounded. And I think that in this world of hyper speed and overstimulation and emotional stress, we really feel that we need to balance it out, right? On the flip side, and by doing all these things and sticking to these pillars, I think you can build that resilience and really find your best self. So
should we go on to the call to action?
I just did mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now it's yours.
Okay. Well, I would say call to action to try and my final words, I would say, or my 2 cents to UTCKs or non-TCKs is find your path of self-care by putting yourself first. And generally, we're not conditioned to do that because we would always naturally put our families or friends or work first before us. And you realize that all that energy is taken from you, and you find yourself not being able to be there for the people around you anyway. So take 2 minutes each day to just listen to your inner voice, find your truth, and just stand in it and revel in it, and try and stay active, and that balanced living will come automatically.
Yay!
Woo!